Welcome to Game Hacking 205. In this video, I'm going to show you how to use Cheat Engine to manipulate game code to get infinite health and one-hit kills on everyone. If you're new here, I've got 4 prior videos in the series that this video builds off of. So if at any point in this video you find yourself lost, click the link in the top right or in the video description down below to watch the series from the beginning. Alright, let's get into this. Because this video is loaded with information we haven't covered yet, I've done a few things already to save a little time. But don't worry, if you've been following along with the series, there's nothing I've done off camera that you shouldn't already know how to do. I found the player's health address with a few exact value 4-byte scans, and I'll lower the health in Cheat Engine to show you that this affects my health in the game too. There you go. And I've also found the opcode that writes to health, which is right here. And with a little testing, I've determined that the health write opcode is shared with the enemies. So I found the health addresses of a few of those enemies using the debugger find out what addresses this instruction accesses, and I've also loaded their addresses into the address list as well. I'll show you why I did that later. And I've scanned for commonalities in the RBX memory structure, which is the one used in the health write opcode. And again, if you're lost at this point, I suggest you watch the series from the beginning. Okay, let's continue. If we take a look at offset 10 here in the RBX memory structure, we see current health. And take a look right above it. This value matches my max health. I'm going to use the max health address for the infinite health portion of the script I'll be writing. So let's jot that down in the Cheat Engine comments window. Alright, let's get to the main reason we're here in the commonality scanner. We're looking for a pointer address value with a consistent group difference, meaning that the value stored in the address matches for all 3 enemies in red and is different for the player in blue, and those values never change. So with the values in 4-byte display, I like to look for an offset with a group difference of 0 and 1, like right here at offset 124. I find that a pair of 0s and 1s that match like this for the enemies and is the opposite for the player tend to stick more in most games. So I'll add this offset to the comments as well, and let's get the script started. In the memory viewer, make sure the correct opcode is highlighted, then click Tools, Auto Assemble, and then in the Auto Assembler, click Template, Cheat Table Framework Code, and then Template again, and choose Code Injection. And first, let's separate the player from the enemies by comparing the value at offset 124 for 1, and let's have the enemies branch off to original code by using a jump if not equal to command. Okay, let's give ourselves infinite health by using the offset for max health and placing it into RCX before RCX places it into our health address. And if all we wanted was infinite health, we could stop here. But since we also want to create a one-hit kill script, we've got a little more work we need to do. So let's come down to original code and copy what's there and paste it right below the new line of code we just typed. And below this, I'll create a jump to exit. Alright, so far, we compare the value at offset 124 to 1. If the value of the offset does not have a value of 1, which it won't be for an enemy, it'll skip over these lines of code here. But if the address of the offset has a value of 1 in it, which it should only have for the player, we'll pass through the J&E, place max health into RCX, then place max health into the address for current health, and then head straight to the exit, skipping over original code. Now, anything we change down here will only affect the enemies. And since one-hit kill is what we're going for, I'll just put 0 into RCX just before it updates the enemy health. Alright, I'll add this script to the cheat table, and I'll call it God Mode, and activate it. And let's go test it. Let's keep an eye on my health when I take a hit here. See that? It increased to full. Well, alright, it looks like the first half of the script's working, so now let's go hit him. And as you can see, he's not dead. But his health does look pretty low. So let's go hit this thing over here once. And same thing, health looks pretty low, but it's still alive. If we look at the enemy health addresses in the address list, we can see that 2 of the enemy's health are now 0. So the script is technically doing what it's supposed to. The 2 enemies we hit now have 0 health. But it's not having the intended effect, because, the enemies aren't dead in the game. But if I hit them a second time, they die. To understand this, and more importantly, fix this so we actually get a one-hit kill in this game, we need to talk about how a game kills a character behind the scenes and take a look at what a code injection script actually does. Let's start with the game code in the disassembler. What we're looking at are a few of the instructions that run when the player or an enemy takes damage. But these aren't the only instructions that run. This is just what fits on the screen. And most programs, including games, follow what's called the flow of execution. Each instruction is run in sequential order, one at a time from top to bottom, unless certain commands, like these guys, get involved and provide a new destination. And all these instructions are building up to larger tasks that we see happen in the game. For example, when the player dies, what do we see? The health bar disappears. We lose control of the character, right? We can't keep running around or attacking enemies when we die. There's a scene that plays where we fall to the ground and the colors, lighting, and background of the game changes. There's a menu that pops up asking us to reload a save. And there's all sorts of audio, sound effects, and music changes. The point is, we see what? 5, maybe 10 things that happen on screen? But behind the scenes, there are hundreds, if not thousands of lines of these instructions that are making the things that we just saw happen. So, this is the line of code that updates a character's health address with the new health value. But even if this one instruction changes a character's health to 0, it's not doing all those things that we just saw happen. As we just talked about, it takes a bunch of instructions executed in the right order to complete those larger tasks. Now, when a character's health reaches 0, presumably the game is going to check for that and then trigger all the instructions that kill the character and do all that other stuff we just saw. But the decision to kill the character doesn't have to happen after the line of code that updates the health address with 0, as strange as that might sound. Keep in mind that the game already knows if the health has gotten to 0 before it reaches this point. Because RCX, which is the register updating the health address with the new health value, already has that health value in it, which it had to get somewhere up the code. And this game's programmers, for whatever reason, decided to trigger the death sequence before the health address actually gets updated. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, let's talk about what a code injection script actually does in relation to the game code, so we can tie all this together and then go get an actual one-hit kill script. When you activate a script in Cheat Engine, the code in the game is replaced with a jump command, and when you deactivate it, it restores the code to what it was originally. I'll toggle the God mode script on and off a few times so you can see this. And if I right-click the jump and choose follow, you'll see that we're at the assembly instructions of the God mode script. And the last line of code here is another jump, and if I right-click and choose follow, take a look at where we are, just under the jump instruction that takes us to our injected code. And I'll toggle the script on and off so we can see that. So, to recap, the game runs each line of code one at a time from top to bottom. And when we do a code injection, it replaces the original game code with a jump to the instructions in the script that we create, and then jumps back so the game can run the rest of its code. Alright, all that said, to get a real one-hit kill effect, we need to work our way up the flow of execution and create a new injection script before the point where the decision is made on whether or not to kill a character. Now, the more assembly you know, the easier this will be, but don't worry, I'll be here right with you the first time to guide you through this. First, to help us keep track of things, I'll double-click in the comments column and label our health right instruction. Now, this won't change anything with the game, it's just for us to look at. Okay, so we know that the health address is being updated with the value that's in RCX. So let's look for any instructions involving RCX. And right here, we see this instruction. I'll cover this special move command in more detail in a future video, but for our purposes right now, think of this as just a regular MOV command. The value in the EAX register is being copied into RCX right here, meaning RCX is getting the health value from EAX. So as we continue to work our way up the code, we need to be looking for instructions involving EAX. And up here, we see this test EAX instruction. And this test is another command I'll cover in detail in a future video, but putting it simply, anything being tested with itself is just checking to see if the value in that thing is 0. So this is just asking, is EAX 0? Is health 0? And just below this is a JLE command, which stands for jump if less than or equal to. So if health is less than or equal to 0, then this jump will be taken. Let's see where it goes. And as you can see, it takes us below our starting point. And remember, this is where the God mode script we made places the jump to our code. So when health is 0 up here, the game never even runs the code in our script. And because our script is putting 0 into enemy health, but they're not dying on the first hit, we can assume that when health is 0 up here, this jump leads to the instructions that kill the character. Which is why we currently have 2 hit kills. The first time I hit an enemy, their new health reaches this test, and if it's not 0 or less, then it comes down to our injected code in the God mode script, where 0 is then placed into their health. And then the next time I hit that same enemy, their health is already 0 from the script, so they take the jump and go to all the other instructions that cause them to die. And if you've been paying close attention, you might be wondering why the code just doesn't keep following the flow of execution down to the code down here that the JLE up here leads to. That's because of this unconditional jump command that sends every character reaching this point safely away from the kill instructions below. So anyway, for one-hit kills, we need to inject our code somewhere above this JLE. Looking just above it, we see another instruction, sub EAX EDI, which, if you've been following along in the series, you'll know that this is taking EAX minus EDI and then storing the result of that subtraction into EAX. So EDI is probably damage, and this is most likely taking health minus damage and then storing the new health into EAX, which of course is then being checked to see if it's 0 and then jumping to the kill instructions if health is 0 or less. Since in the next video in the series, I plan on showing how to create a damage multiplier, I'll choose this point for a new code injection, so the sub-instruction gets pulled into the script. Okay, so we'll first need to separate ourselves from the enemies, and we can actually use the same pointer we used in the first script. So I'll copy these 2 lines of code in the first script and paste them over here in our second script. And same as in the first script, we need to copy the instructions from down here to just beneath our compare to make sure that all the relevant game code runs. And for the player, I'll add a line of code just below the sub instruction and move max health into EAX using the pointer that's holding the value for max health like we did in the first script. So when the player takes a hit, health will be subtracted by damage, but then we're coming right after it and putting max health into EAX before the test that's checking if it's 0. And then just below, I'll add another jump to exit. And down here for enemies, we'll come right after the subtraction and put 0 into EAX, which will guarantee that they'll take this jump if less than or equal to, which should cause them to die. Alright, let's test this. I'll rename the script real quick, activate it, and let's go back to the game. Well, I think it's safe to say that we have infinite health. Now let's hit a few of these guys and see if we have one-hit kills. And we do on these guys. Let's go check this out on the boss. And there you go. We are now One Punch Man. And I'm not gonna lie, this kind of makes the boss fights a complete letdown. I feel you, One Punch Man. So in the next video, we'll expand our cheat table and turn our one-hit kill script into a damage multiplier so we can control how much additional damage we deal. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.